Hey, my name is Nicolas Landel and I'm the farm manager for our beautiful lavender farm in the south of France. To begin with, I want to show you a little bit around the farm. This is our beehives. We actually set up beehives in almost all of our fields, not only because it makes great honey, but also because it helps pollinate and we love bees. This is the village of Simiane-la-Rotande where the farm is located. This is our weather station. Well, actually it's one of many. We've created a network of them so that we can actually collect data about the amount of rain or the weather we had everywhere we grow lavender. This is an oregano field and it just started to bloom and it smells really nice. This is our distillery. This is the castle, which I actually have the keys to, and inside the castle we have a Young Living shop. And this is the castle shop. On this farm, Young Living owns 22 hectares of land, so about 54 acres. But we actually grow lavender on a much larger scale. And to understand why we have all this lavender growing here, you must understand the history a little bit of this farm. Everything started about 30 years ago for the French farm. My father at the time had just started distilling lavender here. Except he was looking for buyers that were interested in quality essential oil. And at the time, most of the buyers were for the perfume industry that didn't care about quality. So my father took some of his lavender and decided to go to the US to a health convention looking for someone interested. And this is where he met Gary Young. It was just a few short weeks after that Gary actually came to France wanting to learn everything he could on the different distillation techniques and the lavender. My father and him became closer. Gary taught to my father a lot about how to use the essential oils. And my father, speaking both languages, was able not only to share what he knew about distillation and lavender, but also started translating for the other farmers. Gary started coming more often to this south of France region and became closer and closer with many of the farmers and actually became friends with a lot of them. So when he decided he wanted a Young Living farm in France, he actually didn't want to stop working with all the farmers that had become his friends. And this is how the French farm started, as a sort of co-op. We, as Young Living, purchased our own land so that we could plant all the regional plants and study them and learn how to get the best essential oil out of them. But we also continued working with all of the local farmers that were very close to and dear to us, making sure that they follow our standard seed to seal and making the best quality oil. We actually grow a big variety of plants here on the French farm. But all of those plants are actually local plants. This means that you can actually find them in the wild growing around the farm. If you were to walk on the hillsides around the farm, you would actually find a lot of wild lavender. Now, to name a few of the other plants we grow here, we have oregano, hyssop, clary sage, helichrysum, rosemary, and einkorn. This is actually an einkorn field I'm standing in. We grow einkorn first because it's delicious, and secondly because it's an amazing rotation crop for lavender. Rotation means that after we've had lavender for a field for a maximum of 10 years, we will take the lavender out and we'll plant einkorn for at least 2 years, bringing back different nutrients to the soil, adding organic matter to the soil before planting lavender or another crop in it. Here we are at our distillery. This distillery was updated about 4 years ago, and the one that was there prior to this was about 20 years old. This actually is the third time that we've updated this location. The original location was built here because we have something very important arriving right at this distillery, and that is a spring, a natural spring, which means we have a lot of great quality water arriving at this distillery. This is why they built it in the first place here. Water is essential to distilling. It is the #1 thing we need because we'll need it for the steam and for the cooling part of distillation. This new updated version has a lot of different things that I think you've never seen before, and I want to run you by them. If you've ever been to a Young Living distillery before, you'll notice a couple things that are different with this one. The main thing is standing next to me. It's actually those blue containers right there. These are actually our vats. So this means that the plant goes inside them during distillation. Now, the reason why we have this system in place is mostly according to the way we function in France. Like I said before, we are actually a co-op. We have about 50 farmers that are far away and with fields that are spread out throughout the south of France. We have 7 of these vats. So we have 2 that can be at the distillery and 5 that can be out either traveling or in the fields getting filled. The way we can do this is that we will bring different vats to different farmers. They will fill them. We will bring them back here and distill. Here we are actually in one of those containers. I'm standing where the lavender after harvest would be. And I wanted to show you a little bit how this works. At the bottom here, you'll notice that we have 6 pipes running along the way of the whole container. Those pipes actually have holes along all of the tubes. And this hole is where the steam would come out of. So the plant would be here, the steam would be diffused throughout the whole container, making sure that it doesn't find the easiest way out. And the steam would then go through the plant, vaporizing the essential oil and carrying the oil out as it goes through it. During distillation, you actually need to control 3 key elements. Well, actually you need to control a lot more, but you have 3 main things that you really need to control, or else you won't be producing a good quality oil. Those are temperature, pressure, and time. To my right, you can see a boiler. This is actually how we produce the steam that we'll need for distillation. To produce this steam, we'll need water and we'll need a source of energy. At this facility, we use natural gas. The gas will heat the water into steam, and from this boiler, will come the steam. But we have some issues with the steam coming out. The first thing is that it's around 160 degrees Celsius. The second thing, it's around 8 bars of pressure, and the third, it's wet steam, which I'll explain what it is. These need to be changed. The first part that we'll do, which I'm standing next to, is we'll dry the steam, which seems very odd, but it is something that we do. Basically, we have a mesh system in which the steam goes through. As it comes out of the boiler, the steam will actually have some droplets of water that it's carrying, producing a wet steam. But as it goes through this mesh system, the droplets of water will be stopped and the steam will have only steam coming out. After this, we'll reduce the pressure to 8 bars, to 1 bar, and to close to 0 in the chamber. We actually don't want any pressure during distillation, or we might harm some of the lighter molecules that are in the essential oil. The temperature is the same idea. If the steam is too hot, we will harm some of the molecule or modify them, and we won't get the quality of oil we want. So we will bring that temperature down so that as soon as it enters the chamber, it is around 114 degrees Celsius. This is a good temperature so that the steam doesn't start cooling down and becoming water again, or that the steam is not too hot, harming the oil. And the last key element we haven't spoken about is time, and this one is very important. To understand it, you must understand that an essential oil is composed of a variety of different molecules. Some are lighter and some are heavier than others. Here on the farm, we distill lavender for about 1 hour. But this can vary according to how long it actually takes to extract all of the essential oil out of the plant. And this is something important because we don't want to leave any part of the oil inside the vats. In the past, people used to distill lavender for about 30 minutes, because in the first half hour, you will actually extract 80% of the essential oil. The remaining 30 minutes of distillation we do is for the 20% that is left. Now, like I said, an essential oil is composed of a variety of different molecules, some lighter, some heavier. And what actually happened during distillation is that at the beginning, the lighter molecules are vaporized and carried out of the vat. And as distillation go on, we have heavier and heavier molecule being extracted. So when people stop a distillation halfway through because they already have 80% of the oil and the cost of distillation is big, there's a problem. What they're missing is not just 20% of the oil, but it's actually mostly the heavier molecules that only come at the end of distillation. So for us to know how to distill a plant, first we have to understand how long it takes to extract all of the essential oil that is in that plant. So let me share with you a little bit about the Young Living lavender. I'm standing here in a population true lavender field. Important to understand. At Young Living, we have a standard, which is called To Distill, which actually gives us rules we have to follow not only for the cultivation, but starting from the seed throughout the whole journey of the essential oil. One of the rules for lavender is we have to grow them from seeds. And when you grow a lavender from seed, you actually make what we call a population. Now, to understand this, you must understand there's actually different ways of growing plants. The first way would be from seeds. We would actually leave a couple rows in a healthy field. We would let the seeds mature, so we wouldn't harvest the flowers for distillation of those rows. And after mature, we'd collect the seeds, bring them to a nursery to give us a little starter, and we would plant those starters into a field. And when you do this, each seed is actually unique, and it will create a unique plant in all your field. You can recognize a population lavender from the fact that each is unique, because each of those plants will have different size and will actually have different colors. Find even white lavender, deep purple, violet, or blue lavender in a population lavender field. Everybody is unique. Another way you could grow lavender would be to make a clone. This isn't something very complicated or done in a lab. It's actually something that most of you have done before. If you've ever trimmed a tree branch, put it in water, replanted it, or cut a basil stem, let it grow roots and planted it again, when you do so, you haven't created a new plant. You've actually made an exact copy, a clone of the original plant. Now with lavender, it's a little bit similar. Someone could go in a population lavender field like this one, walk around and look for the biggest plant, because the biggest plant would actually mean the biggest yield. He would select a plant, and from this plant, you would cut all of the stems of that plant, bring them to a nursery, and each of those stems would become a new plant. And you would plant a whole field just from the clones of this lavender, which would mean all of the plants in that field would be the same size, the same color, and would produce the same oil. With the population from seeds, each individual plant is different and will produce a different essential oil. Gary knew from the very beginning that population lavender would make a better quality essential oil. And I'm going to explain to you why. There's two main reasons. The first thing will be the quality of the essential oil itself. Each of those plants are unique, producing a unique essential oil. So when you go and harvest this field, you bring all of this diversity together to make a more full essential oil. And you also balance out the difference in each plant. So if one plant has a little too less of one molecule or another has a little too much of another, when you bring them together, you'll balance everything out. And this is what you get with a population lavender field. With a clonal lavender, like I said, each plant are actually the same size, smell, and produce the same oil. So you don't get this diversity at all. Not only that, but also clonal lavender are usually selected, like I said, for a much better yield and not for the quality of oil they actually have. So in the end, you have a field that produces a lot more oil, but with no diversity, and the quality isn't the most important factor for the person that selected it. The second reason why population lavender is so important is for the sustainability of the plant. The fact that we collect seeds means that we actually let the plants transfer information to that seeds on how to adapt and evolve over time. In a population field, certain plants will die off of a disease or because they can't resist a certain change in climate or in soil. But the others will live on, and we will collect seeds and continue growing, letting the lavender evolve, adapting to a difference in this ecosystem. Now, with a clonal lavender, this cannot happen. It is exactly the same plant as when it was selected. Most of the clones you actually find in France were 40 or 50 years old. So this means they have not changed till then. Everything else has changed, but they're exactly the same as 50 years ago. At Young Living, we actually are one of the last to grow population lavender. More than 80% of the world's population lavender is us. Others have moved on to clonal for the better yields, but we're very proud to continue this on. Proud to continue Gary's legacy to have a sustainable plant for the future and have the best quality oil in the world.